please take your seats. The program is about to start. Please take your seats. Thank you. This is the final call to take your seats. Thank you. So if I can ask you please to look to your screens where you will see a short video introduction.
Over 7 billion humans inhabit planet Earth. Experts tell us we collectively produce more than enough food to feed everyone. But why do 800 million people still go to sleep hungry every night? And why do over 3 million children die every year due to malnutrition? The causes are many. The problem is growing. Solving the problem of global food and nutrition security is complex. Perhaps the solution is right before our eyes, if only we could see the entire picture. The solution is breathtakingly simple. The answer to zero hunger lies within existing agriculture and nutrition data. Right now, this information is inaccessible to many. This is why we believe in making this data open and available for unrestricted use worldwide, to combat hunger, promote innovation, create economic opportunities, empower farmers, and improve the health of everyone. Let's ensure no one goes to bed hungry. You have the opportunity right now to end world hunger. All you have to do is lend your voice to tell public, private, and non-profit organizations to commit to making agriculture and nutrition data open and freely available. Together, we can be the generation that takes the most important step to end world hunger by setting agriculture and nutrition data free.
Thank you very much. Can I welcome you and start proceedings today? I give you GODAN Secretariat Executive Director André Laperrière.
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is André Laperrière. I'm the Executive Director of the Global Open Data Initiative for Agriculture and Nutrition, otherwise known as GODAN. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this summit this morning. Sometimes when I'm asked what GODAN is all about, of course, we're about food security, agriculture, and nutrition, but we're way beyond that. In a way, GODAN is a family. GODAN is an alliance. It's an alliance of more than 360 partners from across the globe, all united by one belief that working together, we're going to be stronger. We believe that the next level of innovation will come from farmers speaking to satellite technology people, talking to research talking to private sector, breaking the silos that so far has limited our capacity to innovate in full. Some years ago, people were saying, oh, there's the internet now, so that's the revolution in terms of the data, innovation, creativity. Well, really, we found that over time, the internet was only doing one thing. It was paving the way for open data to arise. Open data is the key. Open data is the key to breaking silos, and it's the key for sharing knowledge, innovating, breaking through the challenges that we all face ahead of us, linked to climate change, demographics, and overall food security. We've prepared an exciting program for you in the next 2 days. We've lined up dozens of our partners came to show in person what they're doing in their part of the world using open data, but we also have lined up quite a good group of top-level experts that are going to come and explain to you what they are doing with open data. I trust that this will not only interest you, but that it will inspire you to go even further. Now, how are we going to manage this program? Well, for this, I have a real pleasure to introduce you the person that will facilitate this journey for us, my friend, GODAN partner, Mr. Amir Dosan from Global Partnership. Amir, the floor is yours.
Andre, thank you very much for the kind introduction. I owe Andre big time for this. So, good morning, everybody. Minister Beth, distinguished guests, excellencies, a very warm welcome to all of you. As you will have seen, we have improved the weather for you as well. We made it nicer and so you can enjoy your stay here, those who've come from afar. We want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. The two-day program, and you'll see it on the website, you'll see a card handed out like this, schedule of events, and then at the back, special event notes, so you can get all the information you like on the program. What we are so thrilled about is we have a wonderful group of participants, speakers, who are, like all of you in the room, are committed to making that change, to address the Zero Hunger Challenge, to address the challenges, as Honorable Perrier mentioned, about bringing open data solutions to the poor around the world. So I want to start with one of the summit visionaries. As you know, I think somewhere you'll have seen, we're so thrilled that Kenya, United Kingdom, United States, along with One and Push, are the people who've been leading this effort. And we have a representative from the One campaign who has been part of this journey for all of us, actually. Most of you do not know One. One is a global public advocacy platform to try and address some of the economic and social challenges, to mobilize people like yourselves, actually. And their goal is to encourage action. And I'm very pleased that Kate Dunways, who's the policy director at One Campaign, is here with us, our partner in this process. Kate brings extensive experience from the US government, as well as in doing global campaigns, mobilizing the public and private sectors, foundations, etc. And by the way, talking about One, I just want to say that the One campaign, One organization was led by a good friend, Michael Elliott, who passed away a couple of months ago. And it is his mission to stay strong. So without further ado, I want to invite Kate. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Amir. I guess it is my job to wake you up this morning, so hopefully I'm able to do that well, or you drank a lot of coffee, and we can pretend that it was me that woke you up. So, as Amir said, I'm from the One campaign, so what I would like to focus on this morning is why advocacy is important in this push to open data, and why an advocacy organization would even care about open data. Because there's not, I think we're one of the few advocacy organizations represented here, so I wanted to give you a bit of a different viewpoint. So, since I am the first speaker this morning, I thought I'd back up a little bit. That video gave us a really good introduction about why open data and food security and nutrition and agriculture is so important. I thought I'd back up a little and talk about open data in general and the fight against global poverty. So, one of the things that is always astounding to me is that, we often assume, or at least the general public often assumes, that we have the data that we need to know how many people in the world are poor, are living in extreme poverty, and therefore all we need to do is figure out the solutions to extreme poverty and go help those people. But the thing is, there are crazy statistics like a quarter of the birds in the world aren't registered. A quarter of the people, we don't know who they are, where they were born, when they were born. They're simply not registered. They simply kind of don't exist in the data. There's also, less than 1% of big data has even been analyzed at all. It exists, but it hasn't been analyzed. Last year, Bread for the World found in their report that 80% of data on women in the developing world is missing. Just simply doesn't exist. As the video told us, nearly 800 million people suffer from chronic hunger, and there's enough food for everyone, yet all we need really are the data to help us solve that issue, to help us figure out how we can get that food to those people. So why is open data important? Well, there are up to 350 million people might be excluded from household surveys. And so this could represent a 25% increase in global poverty figures. So there might be a lot more people living in global poverty than we know. At least $1 trillion we found in our $1 trillion scandal report is being taken out of developing countries each year through a web of illicit and corrupt activities. And $1 billion is needed to get the data that we need to tackle corruption and monitor the global goals in general. So what is the role of advocacy in all of this? Well, we play, a really pivotal part in a big, it's a big ecosystem, right? So we have governments that need to open up their data and need to fund the capacity that is needed to collect data and monitor and analyze the data. We also have, private sector that needs to be opening up their data and also helping to provide the funding for that capacity building. We have philanthropic organizations that are helping to fund that capacity building, et cetera. So there's a huge ecosystem of players here. And what advocacy can do is help push those other players, help connect those players, those stakeholders, to citizens on the ground who are ultimately the most important stakeholders in this fight. And create momentum through this. And so the way that one does it is we have what we call a 4 Ps model. So that's through policy, so we figure out what policies actually need to be pushed to, in this case, open up data, and make sure that that open data serves the poorest and most vulnerable. We work through politics, so we work through, that means donor governments and developing country governments. We work on public pressure, so we get the public to care about it. We bring awareness to the public who then pressure their own governments. And through pop culture as well, because since we are headed by Bono, lead singer of U2, we might have a connection or two in pop culture. So we use those pop culture too to help mobilize the public. So what I thought I'd show now is a video about how one works, so you understand.
This isn't about charity. It's about justice. We don't use shovels to dig wells. Our voices are our tools. Speaking up. Demanding action. We come together as one. 7 million strong. Geeks and guitarists. Soccer moms and students. From LA to Lagos. Putting politics aside,
I really do believe that we can make poverty history.
To the One campaign, thank you for bringing us together.
saying whatever must be said, however we need to say it. We are rebels with a cause, armed with powerful data that can save lives. Mobilizing. Advocating. Persuading.
If you empower a woman, you empower a whole continent. You empower the whole people.
Because where you live shouldn't determine whether you live. Together, we cut extreme poverty in half, and we refuse to stop until we finish the job. Join us.
So one works through building membership throughout the world. We have over 7 million members at the moment. Over 2 million of them are in Africa. The rest of them are spread across the rest of the world. And we really started as, actually our organization started with the name Data, so you might remember that organization, and every year we put out what's called the Data Report, which is an annual accounting of how donors are doing across the development goals, originally across the MDGs, now across the SDGs. So we often call ourselves factivists. We are very much rooted in data. What we advocate for isn't necessarily ideologically based, it's more data-based. It's what are the data telling us about the extreme poor. So a few examples of what we've done, of what we are doing to help open up data as an advocacy organization. One would be that we published last year the Follow the Money portal. So that's an online portal that lets you look at stories around the world of how open data is helping to solve problems in poverty. So I'll show you a few examples in a second. We also, during the Ebola crisis, put on the online Ebola tracker, and I'll talk about that in a second too. We launched an effort to work on SDG 2 accountability and monitoring, hoping that someday we can get an online portal for monitoring of SDG 2, because as we are all aware here, there are all kinds of initiatives, of programs, of financing going into agriculture and nutrition and food security. And yet we have no idea, even if all of those commitments were actually met, we still have no idea how far that would get us to reaching SDG 2 by 2030. And we are also in the process of working with some partners on a scorecard on agriculture and nutrition data, actually scoring how open and useful they are. So our Follow the Money report, for example, one example is in Nigeria. In 2010 in Bagega, there was a huge problem with lead poisoning from mining. 400 children died. A civil society organization on the ground, Connected Development, or CODE, started a social media campaign. They built local networks of civil society. They worked with local government. They brought awareness to the national government. And finally, through that social media campaign, we're able to get financing from the national government to solve that lead poisoning problem. And what that really tells us is revealing data is not enough. Just opening data is not enough. There has to be a whole universe that is created around that. You need to open the data. You then need to mobilize around those data. You need to be able to use those data. You need to get people to care about them. You need to build networks on the ground to find out at household level what is actually going on and what the needs are, and you need to build relationships with national governments to get them to care, etc. So there is a kind of a massive universe that has to be built around the data. It's a lot more than just opening it up, as I'm sure many people will be talking about throughout this summit. And then on the Ebola tracker, we were really the only ones that were tracking how much money was actually going in for solving the Ebola crisis. There was really nothing online, no way that you could find out if donors were meeting their commitments in real time on this ongoing, fast-changing crisis. So we launched the Ebola tracker. So these are just a few examples of ways in which one is working to open up data through advocacy. So we push to open data. We then put those data online. We then advocate with national governments, and we advocate with donor governments, and we get citizens excited and involved around open data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. You saw what the 4 Ps were about. That is the kind of initiative which we really value. In fact, at the United Nations, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon started the initiative to create the SDGs with 5 Ps, what we call creating peace and prosperity on the planet for people on the planet through partnerships. And talking about the United Nations, I would like to introduce you to a video from Dr. David Nabarro, who is the Under Secretary General and Special Advisor for the SDGs for the United Nations.
The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is about improving the status of the world's people and of the planet in ways that reduce inequity and leave no one behind. The agenda calls for progress in relation to 17 interconnected goals and 169 targets. When assessments are made of progress, there has to be measurement of a large number of indicators in different population groups and in real time. This calls for a transformation in the way in which measurements are made, data are collated, and analysis is undertaken. Population averages are not enough. People who specialise in obtaining and using data have a vital role in implementing the 2030 Agenda. Accessible, reliable data and relevant information are vital tools for good decisions, for effective implementation and for examining progress. So what are the implications? First of all, there has to be increased emphasis on obtaining data from different groups within populations. Such disaggregated data are essential. They assist with evidence-based decisions. How? Because they help those who are responsible for development to identify people who are most at risk of being left behind. And they help to identify people who are omitted from development efforts. Given the structure of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, it is important that population data are broken down by people's sex, by their differing abilities, by their ethnicity, their livelihood groups, and their location. Second, ways in which these data are used are also important. Data must be recorded, validated, collated, analysed, and reported in ways that permit the identification of groups with differing risk profiles. These kinds of data reveal the specific issues to be addressed when helping people to be resilient under threat. These data also empower rights holders with the tools they need to hold their governments to account. Thirdly, connectivity matters. Useful data are hard to come by if communities are not connected. People who are very poor and who are not connected, particularly women, are stranded on the wrong side of the digital divide. But connectivity, when it exists, drives innovations in data collection and analysis. It makes citizen-generated data, automatic geocoding, interoperability, and cloud storage possible. Connectivity generates big data, complementing and embellishing information obtained through household surveys. And so in conclusion, relevant, disaggregated data from both public and private sources is a valuable resource for the public good. The data, when they are available, depend on innovative and ambitious partnerships that are designed explicitly to yield these kinds of information. And GODAN partners can work in this way together through the open data revolution to zero hunger. Such data-based partnerships are key to delivering the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
So that was a nice introduction to how we can all work together and how the UN is critical and supportive of this effort. And talking about, you saw what Kate pointed out about the Ebola initiative, which won that led to greater transparency and accountability. David Nabarro on the UN side have been actively involved in mapping that process within the UN system. So I'm very pleased to warmly welcome the US representative for Global Food Security, Ambassador Nancy Stetson. Ambassador, welcome, and we're delighted to have you here. Ambassador Stetson will moderate this lightning round panel here, and the panel is already up here and unless they're introduced. So I just want to say that Dr. Stetson is what I call the global food security ambassador, all of us. She's a veteran of Capitol Hill. She's worked for over 26 years in the Senate as a senior foreign policy advisor to then Senator Kerry, and as a professional staff member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. In her current position, Dr. Stetson leads all aspects of the U.S. diplomacy related to food security and nutrition. Of course, that included serving as the Deputy Coordinator for Feed the Future. In her role, Ambassador Stetson has championed climate-smart food security initiative. She's raised awareness of the impact of urbanization on food security and a great advocate for comprehensive food security. We are delighted to have Dr. Stetson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. It's great to be here with a group of people who recognize the importance of open data. And I can say that we all know that we are not going to meet, as David Morrow said, these global challenges we face, from food security to climate to energy and water, without open data and metadata. As Special Representative, as Amir suggested, two of my priorities are, one, to look at the gaps in our efforts in terms of food security and malnutrition. And one of those gaps we discovered was we lack data in a number of areas. For example, what is the status of hunger and malnutrition in urban areas? We don't know, but it's critically important because the demographics show that people are on the move, and 10 years from now in the developing countries, cities are going to be overpopulated, and hunger and malnutrition are going to be clearly major issues. The second thing I tried to do is to sort of get my team to be forward-thinking, forward-looking. What are the challenges and the trends that we are going to have to deal with in the next 15 years if we are going to actually achieve SDG 2, which is to end hunger and malnutrition by 2030? And I think that these challenges and trends require us to think more broadly and to really expand upon the efforts that not only the United States is doing, but also the global community is doing. And to that end, we can't do it without data. And I'm pleased to see that there's been a buzz growing about data, at least since I've taken on this job. You know, when I first came into the job, I said to my staff, do we have a map that can give me an overlay of hunger, malnutrition, where climate is a problem, where poverty is a problem, basically a heat map to show us where these things overlap? And they looked at me and said, no, we don't have that. We really don't. And I thought, okay, so it's a map. And I said, well, why is there no map? And they said, well, some of the information is outdated. Some of the data sets are hard to read. They don't overlap. Some of them only focus at the national level. They don't focus at the subnational level, and we need subnational. Sometimes we rely on data from 20, 30 years ago. It gives a picture of poverty then and of hunger then, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the trends that we're dealing with now, the impact of the climate, what's happening in cities, for example. Even in refugee areas, as people move because of climate and hunger, and we have enormous national security problems, of which food security is a central part. Well, how do we address that? We need more information, we need more open information, and we need more data. Our interventions, the programs that we implement, are only going to be effective if they are data-based. We all know that. And we don't want to waste resources. God knows in the U.S. government, as well as other major governments, there's never enough money to go around to address all these issues, which is why all of our private sector partners are so important to our effort, because you can bring technology to bear, and the technology is there for us to address these issues. We can figure out how to properly monitor hunger and malnutrition in all its forms, including stunting, wasting, obesity. We have the technology to measure agriculture productivity, how it's impacted by climate change, and how it contributes to climate change. We really don't have an excuse anymore to use incomplete and outdated data. So I am thrilled to support GODAN, and I thank my colleagues at USDA who have really led U.S. involvement in GODAN, because it's a critically important effort and it has a critically important mission. And as I would like to see a picture of a world where all the data pertaining to agriculture and nutrition and food security is out there. All the data is accessible. We can add to see platforms where we can actually analyze the data and ask questions and get the data that is missing. And to that end, I would say that I'm very happy that Project 8, who's represented here by Samir, has been a partner with the United States and with my office, actually, with the State Department, and with others, the Demand Institute and others, to work on a platform that will allow us to bring all this data together, and indeed, in its final form, to exchange analysis about the data. Is it good? Where do we need more data? Can you provide this data? I think that's going to be key to one of our efforts to deal with food security and malnutrition. And hopefully, Project 8 will become a platform for dealing not only with hunger and malnutrition, which they decided to tackle first, but also other aspects, all the aspects actually, of the SDG. So I know that you're much more interested probably in hearing from our four presenters than you are in hearing me rattle on, so I am going to move to that and to talk to these, and we're going to move to these lightning presentations. Again, I want to emphasize before we do that the importance of innovation in this space. I'm inspired by the innovators that have gotten us this far in agriculture, in technology, and in data, because without that we would not be able to even think about achieving SDG 2 and all the other goals that we have set as a global community for ourselves to meet the 2030 agenda. So with this in mind, let me introduce to you 4 visionaries on open data for agriculture and nutrition. Each of them has played a different role in making such data available or putting such data to work. Through this series of presentations and discussions, which will follow, I hope you'll get a better idea of the power and the promise of open data in the realm of food security, agriculture, and nutrition. So let me begin, first of all, with Samir Sayani, Vice President at the Demand Institute and Nielsen. He's going to speak to us about Project 8, which I've already mentioned, and innovation that I'm excited about and that we're happy to partner with. Samir, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks for the great question. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's always great to come to such conferences where my work is done for me already before I even start talking. I think all of you here are talking the language that we started to talk when we started to work on this initiative. So, let me start by first introducing, the people behind, the organizations behind Project 8. So I represent the Demand Institute, which is a not-for-profit think tank jointly run by the Conference Board and Nielsen. And as you can see, we are supported by UN Foundation, who are co-founders of this initiative with us, as well as Salesforce.org, Accenture, and very kindly USDA Department, and now partnership with GODAN as well. So here's the big question that we put to ourselves when we started to work on this initiative, which eventually became Project 8 back in 2013. What would it take to sustain a world with 8 billion people and beyond? And at that time, we called out with our partners, our founders, that data is the largest enabler to answer this question. But when we looked around the data situation on human beings, we saw that data is fragmented, is highly variable, and is very, very difficult to access and navigate. No surprise to I think most of you who are out here today. So that's the challenge that we took upon ourselves to respond to, and our response to that challenge is Project 8. So what exactly is Project 8? It has 2 very important pillars on which it stands on, which it tries to work through. It is, in one sentence, it's basically a professional social network that is built around data about human need, data about sustainable development. So let me start with data. I think it's all that you can think of. It's about providing a space, a platform, a trusted platform where data, big data can sit, to be analyzed, to be accessed anywhere. It's on cloud-based. There are possibilities to do analysis on it, build dashboards, visualizations, the whole 9 yards. That's there. But then there's another element of it which we believe is very, very important, which I think has been talked about earlier by Amir and Andre, is the connectivity part, is building that community part. So we believe that having data together on one platform is important, but it's also important to bring the people together who matter, who are working through this challenge of looking at into the future and understanding what the human needs are. So there is the professional social network side of it, and when I say that, those words, you might think like a LinkedIn, like a Twitter, maybe even Facebook, and I would say yes to all of that, with the same jargons pretty much, and there's more, but minus the selfies. So sorry about that. So what we are hoping to do is build this digital information community of practice that comes together to use, share, analyze data information, discuss perspectives, find new solutions, build the insights, publish the results, and get together to answer those challenges that we have in front of us. So we have called out, as Nancy said, food security or hunger and nutrition SDG2 as our first topic, but we hope to scale up to other topics. So where we are at right now, the data is the platform is up and running, is alive, it's no longer a concept, it's no longer a dream. It's there, it's happening every day, people are engaging. There are about 200 million plus rows of data. There are dashboards, there are different lenses that you can use, there are visualizations out there. There are users from 70 plus organizations who are using the data, representing 10 plus countries. Some of you are out here. Thank you very much for that. And it's actually happening in the real world, which is great for all of us, I think. What we're doing next is about getting more users to come and engage, getting more contributors. So, all of you are welcome, and we hope that with this partnership with GODAN and USDA, we can become that sole important platform or space where people can come together. We're also looking to expand our collaborator network, so organizations want to come and join us, support us in ways over and above just using and sharing data, and we hopefully want to scale up into other topics of human need beyond food and nutrition as well. So thank you very much for having me here, and we look forward to coming to our booth. My colleague Rachel is out there. She can take you to the platform that you engage with it, and hopefully we can have you join us soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samir. That was great. Now I want to welcome Derek Easton. Derek is the Managing Director for Alternative Risk Transfer Solutions at Willis Towers Watson, a leading global advisory and solutions company. Derek and his team design and tailor-made risk financing solutions. Derek?
Click onto this. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. What I'd like to do is briefly touch on how we use open source weather data to create insurance solutions. But to set the scene, essentially, we know that managing agricultural production risk is critical to ensure adequate food supply. And the shortfalls in yield and production have been typically created by adverse weather events and natural catastrophes. The self-sufficiency and resilience of our farmers is really therefore dependent on their ability to recover or cope with such events. Technology is a key part of resilience, and it's also a key driver in improving our food production system. But as technology and data become available, it also creates opportunity. Together in insurance, we often focus on risk management, and the combination of risk management techniques and technology can create potential solutions. So what I wanted to do is actually show you how we've actually made that real. I'm going to just briefly introduce you to the African risk capacity. This is really a product designed to help member communities be more resilient to extreme weather events and protect food and secure populations. ARC really provides an insurance coverage for drought, and it does it immediately in advance of that happening. But it does more than that. It actually helps these countries understand their risk better and implement disaster plans. So the data that we actually use here is really based on rainfall. And we create a rainfall index that's calibrated to the growing season, but also to the specific crops being grown in each country. The data we actually use and that is behind this is open source data from NOAA and other sources. The underwriting model actually ingests rainfall data on a daily basis. And it does that at a resolution of about 10 kilometres by 10 kilometres over the whole continent of Africa. The model takes that estimated rainfall data and compares it against a standard index for that crop. It then determines a deficit, a rainfall deficit, and if that is, it determines the population that is impacted and translates that into insurance payment. So why is that important? Why is it successful? It's about the speed at which all of that happens. We take that data, we understand, we analyse it, we understand the impact, and we make that insurance payment available almost immediately. So I think here you can see that the data is absolutely critical for us, and it's also the computational capacity of technology as well. We know that traditional insurance techniques just simply cannot work in this type of field because they're dependent on localized weather monitoring stations, which often are completely uncorrelated to the actual events that are happening on the ground. So in summary, I would just say that the open source data allows us to identify problems and create solutions. Without it, I think the data would become exclusive, monopolized, more costly, and certainly it would restrict innovation. So we're delighted that we can access this type of data because it allows us to reduce the basis risk that's embedded in these products and make our solutions more relevant. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're going to turn to, let's see who we're turning to next. Sanjeev Krishnan. He's the managing director at Seed Growth Ventures, which is a multi-stage venture fund that invests in transformative food and agricultural companies. S2G investments focus on meeting shifting demands for healthy, sustainable, and local food. Sanjeev has more than 15 years of experience in sourcing, executing, managing, and governing venture and private equity investments. Sanjeev, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. An honor to be here. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the U.S. food system and how that potentially has implications globally. I sent the slides across to our colleagues, and they said, "Here you have 3 minutes." And I don't think those are the slides, but maybe you can get up the SG slides.
Just as a sort of valuation. And what we normally say is that standard children today leads to standard economies tomorrow, because we really need to develop children and human beings who are going to think right and lead our countries in the future. With those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I would want to congratulate and thank all of you for taking your time and ensuring that we all become champions in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Bett. Thank you for being the champion for the underprivileged. As you heard, Ms. Bett said he's keen to reach out to G7 and others. And I would invite you to look at your document and please log in and sign a petition. This is all about what you're here for, to encourage you. So maybe Secretary Bett can take this to G7. Thank you. Talking about being voices, the voice for the voices, really looking at rights and human rights of people. Our next speaker, Kerry Kennedy, has devoted her entire life to address the challenges faced by people around the world who suffer at the hands of others, addressing violence against women, violence against children, addressing human rights activities. Kerry Kennedy has been a pioneer of change. She has the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice. She's the recipient of a number of awards. More importantly, you will see that after hearing her, there is an opportunity for us to recognize that open data issue could actually be a human rights issue. And I only welcome my good friend, Kerry Kennedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mir. I'm so happy to be here today, and I especially want to thank my niece, Kat Townsend, stand up, Kat, who invited me to come. She's doing a lot of work in this area, and she's the most brilliant person I've ever met, so talk to her. As a human rights activist, we and the head of a human rights organization, Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, we've advocated for open source data for over 2 decades. Because the right to access to information is the keystone to asserting all our human rights. And when that data is denied, lives are lost. So this first came to my attention in 1991 when I was doing some work in Eastern Europe. And I spoke to a group of scientists and agricultural engineers in Prague. And they told me that on April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear plant exploded, and those radioactive particles went floating on winds across Eastern Europe. And many of them ended up over Prague. Now this happened April 26th. May 1st, as you know, May Day was the great celebrations of the armed forces and others throughout Eastern Europe. So Prague, with Russia behind it, ordered everyone out into the streets on May 1st, just a few days after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And that day, there were pouring rains on Prague. And all these scientists came out with Geiger counters, and the Geiger counters were going off the charts in terms of the nuclear waste that was being dropped on that city and all of those people. And they were all rounded up by police and thrown in jail. And that information was not allowed to get to all those people in the parade and watching the parade. Now that is an extraordinary example of how withholding information, withholding data, can lead directly to massive human rights violations. And that's really what this conference in many ways is about. Most of what you're saying here is very positive, but we also have to think about the negative. When this data is withheld, what does that do to people, and what's our responsibility to ensure that people actually have access to the information that's going to impact their lives? This came up again in Haiti in 2000. We started working in Haiti in 2003 on an issue of access to water. So at the time, there was our partners there we were working with Partners in Health, which is Paul Farmer's organization. And at the time, our colleague there, his name is Lou Beal, said we need to find out what happened to the Inter-American Development Bank loans that were supposed to be released and help us build a water system. She told me that there had been no water, access to water in a certain part of the northern plains of Haiti, and that the clinics were full of people, and the factories were empty, and the schools were empty. And then they applied to the Inter-American Development Bank. They got a water treatment facility there, and it was miraculous the schools filled up, the factories filled up, and the clinics emptied out. And then the President Aristide returned to Haiti, the Bush administration took over in Washington, and the Inter-American Development Bank loans stopped flowing. The factory, the water facility broke, and there was no money to go and fix it. And as a result, there was a massive cholera outbreak in that part of Haiti. And the kids who died in that outbreak, the thousands and thousands of kids who died, were called the IADB kids, Inter-American Development Bank kids, because there was such a clear connection between the banks cutting off those loans for the water treatment and the death of those children. And so she said, try and find out why this has happened. And we brought a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act suit against the Treasury of the United States government, the Department of Treasury, and we found emails between Treasury and the IADB with the Treasury Department saying, cut off the loans to Haiti. We don't want any money going to that government. And the IADB saying, we're not allowed to do that. We can't tie politics to humanitarian money. And the Treasury Department said in response, stop sending emails and cut off the loans. So this is what happens. That's why we must insist that governments make all of this information available, because lives are at stake. And we have a duty, governments have a duty, that if when we think about the right to water, it's hard to assert, but we were able to assert that legally by saying that governments, once they have given this, once they've started to provide the water, they cannot then cut it off. So that was a successful endeavor to try and hold governments responsible for denying people the right, the access to information. This became important in Haiti again in 2008, where there were 4 hurricanes in a row, as you remember, Faye, Gustav, Hannah, and Ike, which wiped out 70% of the crops of that country. It was a complete disaster. In the wake of that, there was enormous international loans that went to Haiti and aid. But a lot of that aid disappeared, and a lot of it was not very effective. So in 2010, when the earthquake happened, there was a great feeling by many in the international field that they did not want to go and help rebuild Haiti because of the disappearance of the funds in the past. So we came up with a solution for that, and this is what it was, that each country should put in one database that would be run by the World Bank a very, very clear place where you could go and see how much each country has promised to Haiti, how much is actually in the pipeline, what are each of the different projects that they're building, how much does it cost to build each one of those projects, and where you can find it on Google Maps. This would empower local people in Haiti to go and see those projects, comment on them, say it's working or it's not working, it's built or it's not built, and follow the money chain. So I think that that's one of the projects for the future in terms of really making accessible to the people on the ground information that impacts their lives. And then I'll just finish with one other story, which also took place in Haiti. We have a program at Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights called Healthy Villages, where we download on laptops and smartphones information on about 500 different it's basically a group of medical apps. And I went to a nursing school in Haiti with about 400 nurses, and they explained to me that in the past, they would go into a village, and they'd go on a Tuesday afternoon, go into somebody's house and say, what's wrong, get that information, go back to the hospital, look it up, come back the next Tuesday afternoon, ask a few additional questions, find out the contraindications, go back to the hospital, and come back the third Tuesday afternoon and provide the medicine. But with this information on these apps, they're able to walk into anyone's house, look up what the problems are that the person is having, look up the symptoms, and tell the person right away what type of medicine they need. So that's another example of how you can really transform lives by having access to information, not only at a very, very high level that we're talking about today, but at a grassroots level that really transforms lives. So I want to say thank you to all of you for the work that you're doing. I view this as important, not only because it's the right thing to do, to provide food and medicine to the people of the world who need it, but because they have a right to this. It's not charity, it's a right. And we need to assert those rights, and we need to make those rights justiciable. And that's part of what you're doing today. Thank you very much.
Gary, thank you very much. Amazing how you described the Haiti situation, the sorry state. And that saga continues in Haiti, as you know, the earthquake in 2010, another epidemic, health epidemic, peacekeeping, and so on. But thank you for all that you do. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to mention that I know you must be dying for some coffee. We just have one dynamic speaker left. I want to mention to you that the part of the visionaries who made these things happen through Secretary Bett, who would like to thank Casper September, who has been the glue for us in helping as part of this team, actually. And of course, Jamie Adams here has been the driver, actually, for all of us. Very conscientious and determined to make things happen. So, Jamie, we're delighted to be working with you. Thank you. So, if you had heard from the presentation, you saw that nothing can happen without the right advocacy and outreach. And at the end of the day, you heard from one campaign which is doing great work for us. And we'd like to introduce you to Judith Roden, who is part of the Global Citizen Movement. Again, a global organization which ensures that every person's rights are respected, communicates them, and encourages action. And we're very happy to have Judith with us, Judith. Can I invite Judith? Judith, thank you for being with us, and thank you for your support. By way of background, Global Citizen is also a part of the Global Poverty Project, which has been supporting the MDGs and now the SDGs. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. It's such an honor to be here today with all of you, particularly the visionaries who took the very bold step, both at the G7 and again here today, to open data and to find data in places that, as Dr. Stetson said earlier, it's never been seen before. This is truly a transformative new way to look at food and nutrition security, and we're very honored and thrilled to be one small piece of it. I'm here to represent Global Citizen, which is a platform created in 2012 as a way to mobilize young people all around the world to make an impact on extreme poverty. Our vision is simple but ambitious, to see a world where no one lives in extreme poverty by the year 2030. And to get there will require a lot of work around issues like food and nutrition security, global health, water, sanitation, the empowerment of girls and women around the world, and expanding access to quality education. But food and nutrition is really at the core of what we do at Global Citizen, because it's simple to see why without access to safe food, without quality nutrients within your diet, it's very hard for people to lift themselves out of extreme poverty. Recently in the United States, we leveraged the power of the movement of 8 million people that we've garnered around the United States and around the world to support a bill called the Global Food Security Act, which helped make the United States government's food security and nutrition security policies as efficient and effective as possible. And without going into a ton of detail on the bill, I wanted to share with you that over 120,000 global citizens took action to call on their members of Congress to support this legislation. And every week I got calls from chief of staffs, from staff working in Congress saying, Judith, I've heard from a few more of your people, you gotta tell us more about this legislation. It makes a difference. When global citizens speak up, when young people around the country call on their leaders to make a difference, world leaders respond. Since our platform was launched in 2012, over 7.5 million actions have been taken that have helped to secure $25 billion in commitments that are set to positively affect the lives of over 656 million people around the world by the year 2030. And next, we hope that we can add to that roster the opening of data on nutrition and food around the world. So that's why we're here today. We're delighted to work with the United States government and with all of the visionaries of GODAN to launch the petition calling on world leaders and private sector leaders to open data on global food security. Thus far, we've had over 19,000 people step up and sign this petition, and we hope that you and your organizations will consider signing today before we hand over the petition tomorrow at the ECOSOC chamber. All of you know that nearly 800 million people around the world struggle with hunger. And here is a real and tangible way that we can join together and make a difference on this issue. Global citizens have spoken. They shared their thoughts and viewpoints on the importance of data for food and nutrition security. And now we need world leaders to act, as the United States, the United Kingdom, Kenya, and many others already have. Thank you so much for your advocacy and your visionary leadership on data for food and nutrition security, and we look forward to working with all of you to call on additional leaders to step up to open data.
Thank you, Judith. We are so thrilled to have you on the GODAN team. Basically, just being candid, we want your network to help the GODAN network grow. Judith is amazing. She connects with foundations, companies, governments, everybody. Thank you. So, finally, we get a chance to have some caffeine. I want to invite you, please. I'm sorry we're running a bit tight for time, so we will be starting our breakout sessions in about 15 minutes. So you have time for a quick cup of coffee and hopefully some sweets, whatever. In the meantime, maybe invite the speakers of the breakout sessions to please head straight to the breakout session rooms and get themselves organized and so on. Thank you, and we will reconvene later.